Krystie Ann.
Hi.
Thank you for doing this, and thank
Of
you for your
course.
beautiful patience of
Oh my
life.
gosh.
As
Girl, it happens.
tech,
Literally this happens to me every single interview. Every interview, I have tech issues.
we
So
have tech and tech issues, but it looks as though Universe Simone, which is what I've coined the name. Sorry for those names, Simone. In a good way, though. Um, it's going well, so we're gonna give it a shot. So here we go. So
here we go.
thank you for being part of this topic series, which is coffee, briefcases, and diaper bags.
I love it.
And for this, you really were one of the first people that I thought about, because for this, what I really wanted to focus on was women who have created space, lifestyle, opportunity, albeit be business or what have you, for themselves, that is authentic to what they feel is their purpose and is their true sort of authentic selves. But at the same time, it's the balance of creating that space while trying to go through the many hats that we have to wear and the expectations that we have to rifle through. So for me, when I was kind of putting this together, the way, because clearly I stalk you on social media, as I know many else do as well, but clearly. So for me, you've done,
stockage.
I mean, clearly, but you've done this, you have successfully done this personally, professionally, spiritually, all of it with an element of vulnerability, authenticity, and grace that resonates with me truthfully. And I admire it. I try and mirror it in my own ways and in my own practice. So yeah, I'm very genuinely happy that you're here.
Thank you. I'm very genuinely happy to be here and be connecting with you. And I think literally the ditto for you.
Oh, shut your cuteness. You just keep talking.
100% ditto. Like,
oh my goodness. So
seriously,
we've known each other for a while. And then I think again, the last time we saw each other was 2010-ish. And then from that point, again, outside looking in. So that is when you made the decision to move south. But and that is what I believe triggered the personal, professional, spiritual sort of journey that has sort of taken you through. So what I would love to know more about is what sort of triggered that move, which ultimately I think, the universe had it planned anyway, but sort of what triggered that decision to make the move to down. It's Dominican, yes.
Yeah, I'm in Punta Cana right now. And it was definitely my mental health. Okay. I was really struggling.
Okay.
The last time I saw you.
Okay.
And I needed a change. I needed to break out of the hamster wheel that society has kind of caged us in.
Yep.
I always kind of felt I didn't really belong.
Yes.
In where I was in Canada at the time, I guess. And I knew I needed to be in a different environment to really support the change that I needed.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that at the time, right? But looking back now, I'm like, okay, Simone,
right.
It all makes sense, like I completely understand. But yeah, I needed a really big change. I was not in a good place. I was definitely a high functioning with depression and anxiety.
Yep.
And so from the outside, not a lot of people knew how hard I was struggling.
Yeah.
And I think I needed to kind of remove myself from everybody, my family included, so that I could just really focus on myself and my own growth. And truly, that was the best decision that I've ever made in my life, was making the move. And even with the insane amount of anxiety, I don't know how, looking back, I don't know how I did it. But I'm really happy that I did. So it was,
And that is what I have to say. I think understanding now the bravery that would take, because there is definitely feelings myself as well. I would imagine a lot of people that have that feeling of like, this is not necessarily what is working for me anymore. And maybe it never was, or maybe it never has, or maybe it did for a time, but I'm not the same person. I'm not in the same place. So you sort of have a trigger of some kind, albeit it could be a big one. It could be a bunch of little ones over time, right? That sort of add up. And it's that there's a bravery in that, okay, I have to do this. And it scares the absolute shit out of me because, and that's what I understand in the sense, how do I break free and to sort of break free from things that I know, even the people that I love and I adore and I do, but that doesn't mean that sometimes there needs to be some separation because there's some things that I personally have to work out. And that just can't involve anybody else. So to be like, I just think about what that would have taken, because I know for myself, I've had those thoughts many years ago, and I've stayed frozen because I'm like, I don't think I can do it. Like, I don't think, but having those thoughts, like, it's like, no, but I think I need to. And then I did some traveling on my own as well, like in between, and that sort of release, but just having the ability to recognize your own voice speaking to you and then to execute accordingly, I think is amazingly brave. And I commend you. And it's made all the difference, obviously.
Yes.
100%. Now, when you say separating from self, like from other people that, you know, obviously we care about whatnot. What I would actually love to talk about that for a second is support networks, because, and sort of, I'm interested to know who was your support networks that gave you the space that was needed, or that you felt like you had to sort of disconnect from, because I would imagine that there are people that we have to sometimes let go in the most beautiful, loving way. But you know what? It's just not compatible with where I'm sort of headed, and the relationships that sometimes have to end or distance, and then the new ones that get created in between. And then the cheerleaders in our lives that we really, really recognize how valuable they are. So who was your circle? Who was your huddle while this whole thing was kind of happening?
My huddle was rebirthing. My huddle was starting really fresh. I had just gone through a breakup. I had some family issues that were kind of going on with some family members. So I was in a very fresh place. And actually, it was a mutual friend of ours, Mark Hearns. Actually was like, I remember he came over and I was like, I'm just not happy here. Like, I'm not happy. I don't know what to do. And he was like, why are you here? Like, you can go anywhere in the world. Why are you here? I was single, no children or anything. And so that was what kind of like, I was like, you're right. What the fuck am I doing here? And so it was like a baptism into a new life. Like, it was just starting really fresh. I obviously still, thankfully, have stayed in really good contact with majority of my circle from back home still, and still my family and stuff as well. And then I created a whole new network here. I think the biggest support system was first and foremost myself. It's definitely been a path of like self-love. I realized I did not love myself, and I needed to reconnect, reestablish that. And then as that started to unfold, like, you shift your frequency. So my frequency started to change, and I just started to naturally attract the people in my life that I needed at that time through the journey. And now, but I created a whole brand new circle of people here, and that's shifted too here. But my parents have been like my solid rock the whole time. I talk to them probably too much for them. I call my parents all the time. They're my best friends. I tell them everything. So they've been my strongest support. And like, just always there for me, always guiding me and helping, challenging me at times too, but they're definitely my biggest support. But I'm very, very grateful that my circle from home is still solid. And those girls and few guys still, like,
Yeah.
it's just been amazing and crazy, actually, because when you think about how much time has passed,
Yeah.
like, you and I don't talk on the reg, but like I still feel so connected to you, and
Yeah.
still, you know what I mean? Like, no time has passed. Like,
Yeah.
there's those connections and those supports are still really valuable and important to have. So
Yeah. And it's even recognizing too, like in terms of a huddle, because sometimes I think we get really lost in certain ideologies. So for example, sometimes I get down on myself, like, like I wish I had closer friends, or I wish I had more
right.
friends, or that thing, like, you're supposed to have this big group of friends. And then in understanding, I think my own journey, it's like, I don't think that's right. Like, I
Mhm.
don't think I necessarily have to have the same kind of friend times 20, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
I have people that I know
Absolutely.
that I can call up anytime, but I
Mhm.
also have relationships and connections that I'm recognizing at this stage in my life where it's okay if a certain amount of time has passed, that I root from you for when I see you, or when I see things, I still root for you. And that is real and genuine. And
Yeah.
I don't have to talk to you. Like, I don't have to
Yeah.
necessarily have that. And that doesn't make it less valuable to me, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense. Like, I don't,
100%.
and that actually was, whether it's maturity or not, but like that has taken me time too, to understand that my huddle looks different. Like, like
Yeah.
I have different people, and it's okay to accept those roles. And I don't have to judge myself or judge those people. Shit, man, we're busy. Like, it's just
Yeah.
busy. And so
Life.
sometimes
It's life.
and it's just life. And it's like, but I can still root from afar. Or when I do have time and we do connect, it still feels like
Yes.
genuine. And I think that's actually more rare. It's
Absolutely.
not the quantity of time, but it's the authenticity, that when you're within it, or the feelings within it. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, I 100%, like, when I saw that you started this project, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, get it, girl. Like, and like I said, we don't talk all the time, but like, listen, it's a huge feat doing a podcast. You think, you hear a podcast, you're like, that sounds great. I want to do that. There's so much work behind
There's
the
a lot of
scenes.
work. Yeah.
There's so much work behind the scenes, but it's like one of the greatest passion projects you could do. So seeing that
Yes.
you were doing it, I was like, yes. And I, like, knowing you, like, history and stuff,
Yeah.
you've always been like um an investigator. Like,
Oh,
you've
keep
always
talking this wonderfulness.
no, but, you have the most beautiful, curious mind, and you like to unpack things and discover things and help things unfold. And that's what your conversations help to do for both of us while we're in the moment, but also the listeners, right? Like, something's
Yeah.
unfolding for your listeners each time they tune in. So yeah, I totally know what you mean about, like, rooting for people, not having because I think too, like, we grow up watching movies and in books and stuff, and it's like best friends for life, like constantly together. And like, same with family, and family doesn't
Yeah.
have to, like, I don't have a relationship with my brother, but I'm always love him. I'm always here for him. If he was to call me, I'd pick up and be like, yeah, what do you need, man? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to look like I love my family so much and we're
Yeah.
so close all the time. And
Well,
there are some families that are like that. That's great. But yeah,
but it's the huddle that works for you. And that's,
yeah,
again, that's another part of acceptance that I've had to, it's like, it doesn't have to look like everybody else, and it's
yeah,
not going to look like everybody else. And there are
yeah,
relationships. I've had these conversations with my own siblings, that you grow up and recognize that friends sometimes become family, and family is not always obligational, and that's okay. It doesn't have to come
yeah,
from a place of anger or resentment. It can just be like, we're going two different ways, and and
yeah,
and that is okay. So in talking about that huddle and making choices for ourselves, sometimes it's about, like I said, making those decisions to let go, or to gracefully continue a different direction.
mhm,
And that's okay too. So
yeah,
yeah, I just
yeah,
had to, yeah, I was curious about that, because it was just always something that I'm like, just to make that move, I just think was so huge and very,
yeah,
very brave. Now, what I also want to know from you, because you've said this oh my God, in your social media, in your podcast, and I've always wanted to ask this question to someone who I feel like understands
Yeah.
spiritually where I'm at. And as we continue on, and again, someone who's created just so much opportunity for people to connect. What do you feel is the difference? Ready?
Yeah,
Between
ready. This feels like this is loaded.
Oh no, it is. I'm not gonna lie, it's loaded in the best way. What is the difference between compromise and self neglect? So like in your process and in your journey of coming into your own space professionally and spiritually, how do you know when you're within your huddle and you're making these connections, right? How do you know when you need to compromise for another person, for another relationship, versus how do you know when it's time to let that relationship go and to create, circles around you that are more authentic to where you're going, and the like people that you need in your life and the cheerleaders you need? How do you know the difference sometimes of when to let someone go and versus when no, it's like maybe I'm just being stubborn and like maybe I need to compromise a little bit? Because that's kind of where I'm at sometimes. I'm like, I don't know if it's me or if I'm just being a stubborn ass or if I need to bend a little bit or if it's like, no, that's a boundary. No. So I just want to hear from you. What do you think?
I don't like the word compromise,
Oh,
first of all.
Damn. Get it, girl. Yes.
I don't like the word compromise because to me, that means that you are not respecting your boundary. And for me, boundary work is one of the most important things to be focusing on as we develop as humans, as we develop as spiritual beings.
Yeah.
There still has to be boundaries because everything is energy. Everything.
Yes.
We're energy. Emotions are just energy in motion. So there has to be some boundaries there.
Yes.
So I don't like the word compromise because to me, that is like somebody, whether it's myself or the other person, is doing something that they don't want to do. Right. And that's not healthy. I think it's important to be conscious.
Okay.
Both parties, right? Like conscious communication is like the most important thing. And like understanding too that there's no right or wrong.
Right.
It's really like I have my truth and you have your truth. And instead of like a compromise, but it's like meeting somewhere in the middle, understanding both perspectives.
Right.
I just think ultimately, like my whole thing that I've been saying is just like leading with love, right? If you're leading from a place of love, there shouldn't be this need to compromise or bend or whatever, because the other person shouldn't be asking that of you to bend the way you don't want to, right?
Ooh, that's so good.
So for me, it's just like boundaries, like working on your boundaries and respecting your boundaries and just being open and communicating those boundaries and asking the other person, like, how do I need to show up for you? How do you need me to show up for you? Right. Understanding what that person needs is the more we are leading with love and understanding what other people need versus what we need. We're just mirrors. We're just reflecting each other. Right. Yeah. So like, if you tell me what you need, I'm going to be like, okay, I likely need the same thing, Yeah. So I really don't like the word compromise. And I think just the more you can be conscious and aware, there's no need to compromise.
Oh, that's so good. And I will also say too, part of that, I think for me and trying to understand, because is knowing self, right? So like before I can show up for anyone, I have to understand myself. I have to understand what my boundaries are. And I think part of my own journey and spiritual sort of pathway right now is really coming to terms with that. Because I recognized at one point in my life after my beautiful babies, but I recognize, I mean, I don't know what they are anymore. Like, I don't know what I'm okay with, and I don't know what I'm not okay with, but I just know I was at a very dark place at one point. And again, talking about this idea of change and transition and huddles. And it's like, I don't feel like this is my narrative. This is not the story this isn't my story. I'm living, I felt like I'm in somebody else's narrative, and I
Mhm.
need to figure out what that narrative is for me. And so
Mhm.
I had to go, I'm still working through it, but it's like I had to go very deep to figure out what my boundaries were. Like, what am I actually okay with? What am I actually not? And not worry about what the other person's going to think, friendship, partner, regardless. It's like, no, what are my boundaries? I need to really come to terms with that and stand to that. And then, like you said, I do think that that energy will start to kind of illuminate. And I think people will go
Mhm.
naturally and exit with, with peace. And those that will enter as well, in terms of creating that network of support. And that, and also too, and I got really clear with, I call her Simone, like that authenticity of what support I want. Like, I want the fierce support. Like, I don't want the fake. I don't want the fake shit. I want the authentic. Like, I want to feel like when I'm happy, that person, that huddle, those group, that people are authentically showing up for me, authentic, that mean it, that fiercely mean it, that they're excited for me. Or when I'm actually having a bad day, like an ugly one, like an ugly day when like you ugly cry, and not like the pretty cry.
I had a pretty cry.
Yeah,
I
like,
don't know. I'm always ugly crying.
it's just, and I'm a Cancer. I cry daily. Like,
Oh,
I literally cry.
Cancer.
I cry daily. Like, and I cry when I'm happy, and I cry when
Yeah.
I'm sad, and when I'm pissed.
Same.
And it just, and I don't want to, but I'm like, just accept it because it's coming.
Yeah.
So, and my partner's like, okay, I'm trying to focus on what you're saying and not on the fact that you're tearing up. And I'm like, just ignore the tears and listen to me. And he's like, okay. So it's just, yeah, I want that sort of authentic, fierce person I can call when I'm really ugly crying or want to ugly scream, and just that person to know that I can do that and not be judged. So that idea of not compromising, but showing up with consciousness, that's good. Anyway, okay, that was so good. Which leads me to my next one. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Trust muscle. Trust muscle, because in following your podcast and in following, it is beautiful in terms of your intentional ways of which you make space for yourself. And like how you shut off social media for a few days. I'm like, oh yes, yeah. And talk about that. Like, I'm out. Peace out. See you in 3 days. I'm like, oh my God. Yep. And yeah, and it's that just making time for the inner dialogue to actually be louder than the static that can come through. And so what I also wanted to ask you about, because I think you talk about it so much and you do it beautifully. How do you build the trust muscle? We all have one. We turn it off a lot. We ignore it a lot from experience. How do we reconnect to it, trust it, hear it? How do you think we should do it? How do you do it? I want to know how you do it.
It's a lot of work. Intuition is a skill that we are all born with.
Yes.
And just as you were kind of just circle back to what you're saying about people showing up authentically, that's also part of developing the intuition skill, is that so many things happen to us in our development from between kids to adults.
Yeah.
The teenage years are like, they fuck everything up. They're so much fun. They're so much fun, but they fuck everything up.
Yep.
And that's what I've started to learn. What I learned with myself is that I shut off my intuition.
Yeah.
Many other abilities as I became a teenager, because you're so focused on what other people think. All you want to do is fit in when you're a teen. And so you basically eliminate all the wonderful, amazing gifts that we all have.
Yeah.
Our person, everything. We mute so much just to fit in for 4 years of existence in a high school, and so that was kind of my unfolding process, was like rediscovering my intuition and like, oh, wait a minute. I have a very strong inner voice. I always have.
Yeah.
And I think even though I say like I shut it off, it was still there, but you kind of silence it and you ignore it a lot, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
My inner voice, it became very hard to ignore it. Um, I'm going to say about the start of the pandemic, to be honest.
Okay.
Um, my whole spiritual path, like blew open. Like,
How?
um, my psychic abilities started to enhance.
Okay.
I'm a psychic medium,
Yeah.
and I've always been a psychic medium. I have always had the ability to communicate with spirit and see spirit. Um, and so at the start of the pandemic, I heard a voice
Okay.
that said, it wasn't a voice that I recognized, but it was one that I felt I knew, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay.
And the voice said, you need to strengthen your intuition. And now, leading up to this moment, I've been on a pretty spiritual path, I would say, since about 2017. I went to India in 2017, and everything changed after that. And so I had purchased a few books on intuition, but just never read them. And they were just literally sitting on my shelf.
Okay.
And so I heard this voice, you need to strengthen your intuition. And I remember the moment I looked at my shelf and I saw this one that's on by Penny Pierce. It's on my stack right here. And I was just like, okay, opened it up and just started studying and just started remembering, because like I said, it's a skill that we all have. It's just one we
Right.
need to develop. So as I'm reading through the book, I was like, oh my gosh, like I already know half of this stuff, and this stuff already happens to me, and blah, 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 blah. And so my inner voice just became, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Thank God. Like it's one of the greatest skills that we can work with, our intuition. And so shutting off social media, get it, like I probably appear more social on social media than I am.
Mm-hmm.
I love to go out. I love to socialize. I'm a Leo. Hello. Like I like, attention, but
Fabulous.
I'm also Libra rising. So my
Mhm.
Libra rising sign is like more of my, like chill. And I don't
Yeah.
know. So I energy in general is just a lot for me. I get very overstimulated. So if I'm very social in person or on social media, like our bodies are not equipped for the amount
And
of
input.
like external noise that we get. Like we are created to literally just live in nature, like tits out, eating berries. You know what I mean? Like,
That sounds beautiful.
doesn't it though? That's
It
like
does.
my ideal life. I say this to like when I'm teaching my students, I'm like, I want to be out in nature 24/7 by a river,
Yeah.
eating berries, totally naked in the sun. Like that's the way I want to live.
Yeah.
You know, that's how we're meant to be. We're not. We have this human existence. So, okay, we need to adjust. For me, that means shutting things off so that I can hear my inner voice and not be
Yeah.
influenced by the programming, because that's what it
Yes.
is. Television programming, it's music programming. They're things that are created to program our minds, right?
Yeah.
And so I knew with everything that was going on at the start of everything, there was so much information coming in. And I was like, okay, I need to be turning on my internal clock a little bit louder so I can hear myself and not all these opinions and not all this fear, because there was so much fear
So
at the
much
time.
fear. Yeah.
And I was still struggling quite a bit with my anxiety. So I knew I needed to make a change. And
Yeah.
so strengthening my intuition has been another great decision. Like no regrets, like completely, Steph, has changed my life. And I learned from a few teachers. I studied my butt off, tons of lectures, all kinds of books. And so now my passion is teaching that and showing people the way to
Yeah.
remembering, like who we are, because
Yeah.
everything changes once you start to strengthen that muscle. It's one of the most important. Our brain is fantastic. We need our brain. It's a great tool, but your heart, your intuition once everything's working in harmony, game
Yeah.
changer.
And I also think
So
too, I would imagine you would be similar in some of the things you said. I'm incredibly empathic. And what I have noticed about myself is I pick up energy easy. Like I'm energy, it's everywhere. But I've noticed with myself past couple of years, and again, pandemic triggered a lot of things in terms of being forced inside, was how much I struggled in the beginning and really unpacking why. Like, why can't I? And I've said this before in the show, but I cannot sit still. I mean, physically, I'm like, I was pacing around a table. I'm like, what is the matter with me? Like, I could not be still for, and then in going further and deeper, I really started to recognize, oh my God, like when is the last time that I actually sat with my kids and watched like a full program, like a full show? I could not think, I'm like, I don't think I've ever done that. I don't think I've ever done that, because I will get up and I'll, without even realizing that I'll get up and do something and just then I'll go back down. Like it became so automatic that when I had that forced, you know, we all had that forced confinement, that it became like that very much reflective of, holy crap, now that I have to slow down, I have to start recognizing why I haven't allowed myself to do so in so much. And then I realized I used to love to paint. Like I used to really love it. I used to write. I'm like, I forgot that I used to write. And and then I found old, whatever. I found old examples of it. And I was like, holy crap. Like I forgot that I did this. I forgot that I really enjoyed that. And then really starting to pick up on the fact that I'm very empathic. I pick up on energy. I can shift easily. And I really had to figure out why. And there for a long time, I honestly believed, I thought I was crazy, because I'm like, how am I going up and down so easy? And then I really came to terms with the idea. I'm like, this is not mine. Like I'm actually in a really great mood. This is not mine right now. Who was I around? What just had what was I doing yesterday? I really had to stop and think, understand myself. This is not all me. And I have to put that away. That is not for me to take on. That is for that person, that situation, that circumstance, whatever. That cannot come home with me. And and going through that sort of unraveling of, okay, like who is this person that I am forced to sit with right now and forced to be with 24/7 in this home. And it was in that time that then my podcast, like certain things started to unfold, that I was like, okay, I get it now. Oh, well, sorry. I don't know if I do. I'm on the path of trying to figure it out. I don't know if that I get it. I don't think that's true. Let's be real. But it was really in that I really recognized that about myself, that I'm like, I think there's a lot here. That I have to better tune into. And again, going back to the huddle, which I just is gravitating toward, but I started to really recognize, if I am this empathic and I am picking up as much as I can pick up easily, then I need to be very mindful of who I keep close, like really close, and how important that affects me. And that means a lot to me. And there are going to be days that I want to go out and be with people. And there's going to be times when I really need to not be around people. And that's not personal, but I need, and also to honor that about myself. Like I'm freaking out. My anxiety is really high right now. Why is it so high? It's like, okay, we're going to journal, or we're going to, whatever that is. I mean, that can be different things for different people. Me, it's journaling, or it's meditating, or it is a podcast or an audiobook, but whatever it is, it's just a space that is my own. And sometimes actually it's just quiet. And that's what I'm working on right now. We're like being in the car, turning off the radio, sitting there for a while, like just sit there for a while, and allowing that to be whatever it is. So what I would love to, oh, sorry, no, go ahead.
No, but I was just going to say, that's the funny thing about the whole pandemic, right? Like it was horrible, but it was also really beautiful for a lot of people. Like it brought a lot of shit to the surface for people. A lot of changes happened, a lot of time for people to really figure out how the fuck do I want my life to look? Because I thought it was going one way, but now that I'm here in solitude, right? And all that time to reflect, I don't think I was happy with the way things were going. Like my life is completely different now versus then.
100%.
So, and I think too, it also showed people how to be sensitive to energy. I think to be honest, I would say majority of us are empathic. That's again how we are all wired to be, is empathic, sensitive beings. If everything is energy, obviously we're made to be sensitive so that we can tap into different energies, so that we can figure out this frequency is not working for me. This vibration is like, we are made to be sensitive, but we aren't really given the tools to understand that sensitivity. And
Right.
because we live in a society that's like programs us to go, 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 hustle, 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 no rest. You can't rest, actually it's the opposite. Rest is the most important thing. Rest is so productive because that's where you can shut out the noise, shut out the bullshit, tune into yourself, rest your nervous system, and come back recharged again. And you have a completely different outlook on life after resting, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the pandemic showed us so much. I'm one of those weird conspiracy theorists that thinks it was all planned. I think they had the plan went the wrong way. The plan is going the right way for us, because for me, all I see is empowerment and growth and changing and evolving, and like it's
And
beautiful.
questioning
Yes.
a lot and wondering,
Yes.
okay, why though? Why though? Why are we doing?
Yeah.
You know why we're doing that? Like we're doing. Do you know why we're doing it? Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree.
Becoming more critical, right?
Yeah.
Like, and not just accepting what we're told, accepting how we think the way things should look, because
Yeah.
that's not the way things are supposed to look. And we're all understanding that now. And that was one of the biggest things for me too, is that the start of everything, I had a psychic reading, my very first psychic reading, just before I think it was just before the pandemic. And at that time, it was to the point for me, I was so sensitive that I had a really hard time being social.
Yeah.
Going out, I had social anxiety basically because I could feel everybody's energy. On top of that, with my psychic abilities, I could hear thoughts, like I could hear things. So I got way overwhelmed.
Hmm.
And I remember asking the psychic, like, okay, can you just, this was at the very end of the reading, I'm like, can you explain this to me? Like, I'm having a really hard time with this as a psychic. Like, what does this mean? And he was like, you have to study that. Like, you actually have to dive into it so that you can understand it. It's not going to get better, but it will be easier, like it will be easier for you to navigate once you understand what you are. Right. And that was just an energetic being.
Yeah.
So I think that's been a really big, important lesson for all of us, was like understanding our boundaries, but understanding how we are so sensitive. Like we're so sensitive to energy. I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think the reason why so many of us don't actually fully dive into that is because we're told being sensitive is wrong. I don't know about you, but I've dated quite a few men who have said to me, you're too sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
You're overreacting.
I like you're too much. I'm like, I'm too much.
Or that.
Even friends, like I've had
Thank you.
friends.
That's the biggest compliment. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm too
I'm
much.
too much. What? Like, what am I too much of? Like, what am I? And that is something. Like, again, friends, partners, what have you? You're too much. Like, I'm too much. What for you? Like to handle? Like, what does too much mean?
Right?
When I'm questioning something or asking something,
Yes.
What does that mean? Like,
Mhm.
and that's another part of it where it's like coming to that part of myself where it's like, you know what? I've given myself a lot of shit over the years and been very critical of myself. When looking back, I actually think it had a lot more, not to say I don't have any accountability. That's not true.
Oh, no.
I do.
Yeah.
But I actually think, I think that had more to do with that person and their inability to accept things about themselves, or like my spirit is like irritating their own triggers or demons in some way, where it's like, I think I should have been a lot nicer to myself instead of automatically presuming, oh my God, they're right. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, I do have this pattern. Like, oh my God. Where it's like, I was so critical first to myself, where I'm like, okay. And sort of, I don't know that it was just me. Like, I don't buy that anymore. I don't, and even the friendships, like I've had to let go, where I'm like, nope, I don't think that it was just me actually, or it's, that's something that I definitely agree with.
Yeah. And so I had to unprogram myself. That's what my whole thing the last 3-4 years is like. I'm deprogramming the old shit and
Mhm.
starting a new program, because the old program was teaching me not to be sensitive,
Mhm.
right? That's the wrong way. That's not the way we're built. It's great to be too sensitive, but there's just tools that we need to start to work with to help us understand that sensitivity and create the boundaries to protect ourselves, like, so yeah, being a sensitive being is a great thing. It's how we are wired to
Yeah.
be.
Speaking of program, which is
Yeah.
such a beautiful segue. Again, fabulously unscripted, seriously. But can you actually, I want to get into your work a little bit because well, I just think people need to know. So we just need to dive into it. So first of all, you are teaching right now. We have come to the absolutely astounding, beautiful realization that you are in fact a psychic medium.
Mhm.
And you're not doing readings quite yet though, or are you now?
For friends, I'm doing readings for friends and friends of friends,
Okay.
but not publicly right now. I guess I'm more focused on teaching right now,
Yep.
first and foremost, because to me, it's important for me to share that you don't need a psychic. You can do it yourself. Like you can tap into your own things. I will be taking readings into the fall, but for now, I want to focus. For some reason, I'm just being called and guided to focus on creating space as much as I can leading up until fall, winter time, but to help show people that.
And what are we teaching? I wanted to get into your program.
Yeah. So my first workshop that I have coming up is Intuition 101.
Yep.
And that is tapping into your soul fire, because everyone's intuition is different. It's your own internal soul fire that fuels you to show up every day.
Yeah.
So that's the first workshop. It's going to branch off into other things. I'm also teaching under other psychics as well. So I'm teaching with another psychic medium, and she has a very intense program. Her name's Fleur, brilliant psychic. So I teach with her. It's also another intuitive program. And
Yeah.
then just, through my social media and stuff like that. But the Intuition 101 workshop is the first thing coming up, and that's in July 10th. And then I know that's going to unfold into so many other workshops and classes and stuff. But yeah, that's what I'm focusing on right now, is teaching intuition.
That's yeah, I'm speechless. That's amazing. And I really do feel more important than I think people even realize. And I also
Yeah.
think as
Yes.
we are in an arena of a time where I think it will become and is becoming something people are becoming more in tuned with
Huge.
slowly.
Oh, huge. The last class I was teaching, there was 40 students
Oh my God, that's amazing.
from around the world, right? From around the world, 40 students, predominantly women, which I've also found very interesting, but I think women just are naturally very intuitive.
Yeah.
Um, so 40 students. So I'm sitting there and every time I log into class, I'm like, this is crazy. These are 40 other people experiencing similar things to me.
Yeah.
And I know where they're at, at that, because it's an introduction program. So it's at the start of the program and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what am I tapping into right now? So to see that there's 40 other people, and that's just in this program. Like, we have another program starting with Fleur at the end of July. My program's another program. And then I was learning under another psychic, and she has her workshops. She's based in, oh my God, Krystie Ann, actually, you had her on the podcast.
Yeah. Krystie.
So she has her own workshops and classes too. So when I started to see, like, oh my God, there's all these people remembering their gifts and their abilities and curious about what they are and how to, strengthen them. It's mind blowing. And so you're absolutely right. It's getting stronger and stronger, because it's like the internal voice can't be silenced anymore, where everyone, I hate using the term woke and all that stuff, but like, people really are waking up and being like, wait a minute. It's like we're coming out of the spell now.
Yeah.
There was a spell that was kind of cast on us. And now it's like the curse of the 80s, I feel like. Everything kind of shifted in the 80s with technology, right? So it's been like the curse of the 80s, and we're all like coming out of this tech spell that's like, wait a minute. We can still use tech, but like, we don't need it the way they're trying to tell us that we need it.
Yeah.
We are the most important vessel, right? Not this box, not Wi-Fi. Like, the world will not end if there's no internet, there's no Wi-Fi or whatever. Like, so it's just remembering who we are, coming back to ourselves. And I think more people are starting to realize that. And then also, so in turn, looking for guidance. And like you keep going back to the word huddle, finding their community, because it's common unity, common thinking, the same thing. And community is really important, especially after we've come out of isolation, shifted how our circles look. So now it's like, okay, I need to call in people that are more like-minded, trying to evolve, trying to be more conscious, trying to be more aware. And so many people are starting to do that. And it's beautiful. It's
how we
beautiful.
Push each other, like without meaning, just pushing each other toward whatever that is for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can you tell, I'm going to have all the links in our show notes anyway, but nonetheless, tell everyone about your fabulous podcast, because I listen as well. So can you tell everyone about it, as I will also put the links in?
Yes. My podcast is not as, I'm not as intentional with the project. I admire you so much for being so intentional and being so focused. Like, you created series and like all these things. Like me, it's literally just like, do I feel like talking to someone this month? Do I feel like doing an interview? It's not consistent.
I don't feel it. The answer is no.
It's not consistent at all. Like,
but that's awesome. But that really is awesome though. And you have so many things going on. Like, I get it. No, I get that.
Yeah. So it's
beautiful.
It's just for fun. And it's called Connected in the Den. And it was just because it started with, and it's actually still continuing with, people who have greatly impacted or influenced my path.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that I've had on the show has taught me. I've taken a class for them or a workshop or anything, and they've seriously impacted my life in a huge way. And so for me, it was like, I just want to connect with this person.
Absolutely. And it comes through.
Thank you.
Right. Like it does. No. And I really mean that. Like what I'm gravitating in life, like in my life, what I'm gravitating toward is, it's got to feel a little messy in the best, most authentic way.
Absolutely.
And if it is too technical in any form, in any which way, shape, or form, even my fruit at the grocery store, I'm being honest, where I'm like, I don't trust that apple. Nope. And like, I'm going over here. So it's like, it comes through that there is connection. And I think that's the reminding that we need right now, is that it's not about, we don't need much, but we need to be connected and we need to feel connected. Yes. And that has to come through regardless of whatever outlet or medium it is. That needs to come through, and that will hopefully resonate with people. And that will hopefully become an inspired thing for people to find their own huddle and their own connections out there to push themselves forward.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Steph. Yeah. Like that is just the end goal. It's just connecting to someone and sharing that connection. And then hopefully it's like, I don't know, I just see everything as a big web. So it's like, okay, I've started this little branch. So then can I connect you to 5 more other people, and then they connect? And it's just, So that was the goal for it. Like I said, it's not very consistent, but I enjoy doing it. I really love the conversations that I have. And
it's an addictive thing, I find.
It really is, right? But I think like I feel like you're similar to me, where like I like to learn people's stories. I like to know where you came from. I like to know the process of it. And I guess too, it's because you reflect on your own thing. Like you look back at your own life and you're like, oh my God, like my life went all over the damn place, So yours can't be as smoother than mine. Like, so it's like, how did you get to where you are? And then you start to realize everybody's journey is so beautifully messy too.
Yeah.
I like to think of it more as unstructured, because I feel like we're so programmed to exist in a structured format, right?
Yep. And linear, like it has to go this way.
Yes.
It's got to go in a straight line. It's not, and if it's this, like you're nuts. It's like, no, I think this actually is what's normal. Yes. And this is unrealistic. Yes. It's not straight. It's not a straight line.
No, it's crazy. We're literally taught like, okay, you go to school, okay, you get your job, you get your husband, your wife or your partner, you have your kids, you buy the house, da 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 da. It's like
Yep.
this like
Yep. They're just
that's not the
checkpoints.
way.
Checkpoint.
Yeah.
It's so you have to get the
Yeah.
checkpoint, right? Next checkpoint. Okay. Next checkpoint.
Right?
And what was that
Yes.
Heath Ledger quote? Oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher it. Forgive me, people. But it was basically when you connect with people, they ask you if you're working, if you have a house, if you have a car, but a family, but they never ask you if you're happy. And that always sat with me where I was like,
I
whoa,
love that.
they never
Yeah.
ask if you're happy. They just ask where you're at, what you have, what you do, but they
Mhm.
don't ask about
I
you.
love that. I want to reflect on that more. It's well, because my job, I do hair and makeup for weddings. I'm in
Yeah.
the wedding industry. So every single wedding without fail, I'm asked, are you married? Do you have kids? Like, do you have a home here? Do you drive? Like, it's like all these
Checkpoint.
irrelevant questions, and then it's like, oh, I'm always sort of faced with kind of not disappointment, but like like, don't worry, you'll find him, like,
I don't want him.
sorry, lady, that's not why I'm here. Well, yeah, I would
Maybe I don't want him or her.
love
Maybe
him, but like, that's not what's important. Like,
but I'm
that's
happy.
not-
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm so
Yes.
happy to be here. And I
Right?
really mean that. Like, yeah.
Yes.
And it's just that framework of thinking. It's not even intentional, but it's that there's a framework, right? That we go through a series of questions that we ask, and it's almost automatic in a way, and we respond almost automatically. And yeah, it's the framework. It really is.
Yes.
It's how we
Yeah.
adjust that
Yeah.
and restructure
Yes.
that.
Yes. And that's that. So I like to live my life a little bit more unstructured. Like, yes, I have a general idea of what I'm doing tomorrow or the weekend, but like, I don't really know what I'm doing in the next 4 or 5 months. No, I don't know. Like, I don't have anything concrete planned, and like,
And that's okay. And
I
that
like
doesn't,
that more.
yeah.
Yeah, because then you are guided by your intuition to show you where you need to show up, when you need to show up. And
it also, you allow room. If it's so structured sometimes, or you have and again, sometimes I also believe I could have everything mapped out for 10 years. That don't mean that's what's going to happen, because if Simone has a different idea, guess what? Simone wins. So,
right.
But allowing space for that and excitement for that, where it's like, let's just not plan and let's see what happens. Even with my kids, like we're working with I'm bored. We're working on this term in my house. I'm bored, mommy. And it's like, creativity is born in boredom, buddy. Like, we are going to work on this idea of what you actually want to do versus what we're just going to fill the time with, right?
Yes.
Or fill the expectations with. So let's just see what happens and just allow things to be what they are versus having an answer to every single one of those questions, right? Like those checkpoints that we feel like we have to make or we have to have, and just allowing space for whatever comes. And that's okay. And not feeling messy about it, or I'm crazy, or I'm not like them, and just, nope, you're exactly where you need to be.
And I think that's actually what contributes to so much of the collective stress and anxiety is living within a structure, right? The more you start to become unstructured, I'm telling you, your anxiety will start to melt away, because part of why we are so stressed and anxious is because we feel we have expectations within the structure to live up to. And when we're not meeting those expectations, we're like, oh my God, my life is ending. It's like, no,
I should be at this. Like, yeah. I should be here. I should be doing this. I should have this. It's like, who said I should?
Exactly.
Who said I should have that at this age, at this time, and I should feel this way, and I should have this?
The male patriarchy is who said that. The patriarchy is who said that.
And that's kind of where, and that's just the unprogramming, right? Like that's where, or even just the unprogramming, the questioning. It's as simple as that sometimes. Like our friend Mark that said to you so simplistically, like, what, I'm unhappy here. Then it's like, then why are you here? And it's so simple, but it's like, it's like, oh my God, why am I? And it's so, and how much we don't even realize is within our control. Like sometimes I feel like we feel so out of control, when really it's that perspective and grounding where it's like, you don't even realize how much you are in control, and how much of this is a choice we don't always recognize we're making. But we make choices every day, and it's so easy to fall into it, but it's just as easy to make a different one. And
Yes,
that old quote, right? You are one decision away from a completely different life, even
absolutely.
though it doesn't feel like that at the time, but to step back, to really try and step back for a little bit and
Yeah.
understand that you are one decision away.
Yeah. Well, life is a series of decisions.
Yeah.
Literally. That's all life is decisions. From the moment you open your eyes in the morning, do I want to wake up now? Do I not want to wake up? Do I want coffee? Do I not want coffee? Should I shower now?
Maybe
Constantly,
later.
constantly. Like if you really listen to your internal dialogue, that's happened. It's literally just choice after choice after choice after choice. But that's where I realize the intuition comes in. So your
Yeah.
intuition comes in to help you make the best choices that are in alignment for you. It's
Yeah.
not that a choice is right or wrong. It's what's aligned for you in that moment that's going to help you live your most expansive version of yourself, right? That's all it is. It's a game. Life's a game. You're player one.
Play
Life's a game.
hard. Play hard.
That's it.
That's it. Krystie Ann, thank you so much.
Oh, this was so much fun.
I loved every second of this, and I will keep
Thank
going,
you.
but I
I
probably
could too.
stop
Yeah.
at some point. But thank you so much, my friend, for doing this.
Thank
This was
you for having me,
absolutely
honestly.
wonderful.